The episode begins with Rose's group continued to have problems facing the demons, but they would not give up so easily and using alterations to feint and special powers that they trained so much with Rose even more encouraging them. The entire team would not stop until they won. Likewise, Rose was careful with her opponent's since, having such a sword wrapped with a powerful curse. She knew that being hit by it would be equivalent to death, but when Nero decided to get closer to hurt Rose's face, she was met with a flurry of blows that were such force it sent him flying back with all his subordinates. So in a couple of seconds, Rose returned to the fight to demand that he get up and show how strong he really was. But deep down, Nero was wondering how they came from a simple mission to hunt up massive monsters to face a group of such strong humans who even defeated a couple of his men that he himself trained in his kingdom. For this reason, the demon began to congratulate Rose for having such strong men in her group, but Rose at that moment, he did not understand why his opponent had changed the topic of conversation. But apparently the demon was only offering them his praise since he had never faced such powerful humans. But the talk did not end there since Nero knew that the heroes of that world they did not exist, but still for some reason they could not handle human symbols. Something that was clearly a problem for him since for humans like them, or the Demon King, he could not fulfill his purpose in life, which clearly was to live out of fear, despair, and human sadness. But yes, at that moment they finished off Rose and her forces. Her Demon King would have no more obstacles to appear. For that reason, the demons launched an attack. And although one of Rose's members pierced the heart of one of them, he seemed to not care at all anymore, who still had enough strength for the fight, so Nero stated that if they can finish them off at that moment, it will be a triumphant victory for the demons. And although Rose tried to save her student, Nero did everything possible to hinder her to the point where she ended up being defeated by the demon in front of all her classmates and her teacher. And the casualties did not end there since the next was another member of Rose who for some reason could not use his fainting on those demons and ended up defeated. This began to make her nervous. The entire battalion, since death was knocking on their door in front of them, to which all tried to calm them down, assuring them that they could handle them. But unfortunately, this did not stop the casualties from coming from the demons. And although Rose knew that little by little she was losing lots of them, her students without being able to do anything, since Nero used his sword with a special curse, and she did not know what kind of curse he could have. In the end, Rose decided to take a risk and go directly against her enemy, but to her bad luck, she ended up with her left eye cut due to the demon's special sword. Rose, while trying to heal herself to regain her vision, finally realized that the curse of the sword has the ability to undo magic. In other words, healing magic does not work against her special sword. In turn, one of her last survivors from Rose's squad began to beg her teacher to heal them, but ended up finishing off like the rest of the battalion, leaving Rose alone against the demons, and with a wound on her right heel that she couldn't heal either. Not in a short time, so having only half the vision and with little energy, the victory seemed to be Nero, who launched himself to finish off Rose, but all decided to sacrifice himself for his captain receiving January's attack. She was left without any response, but when Rose took the trouble to see by her side, she saw all the demons who fell in combat, all thanks to her squad, which she herself carried, until her final day, something of which Rose was very aware. After all, each of them believed in her teacher to the point of giving her life for her. But Rose had deep down that everything would have been avoided if she were much stronger. In the same way, Nero was ready to give the final blow to Rose, promising not to forget any man fallen in battle. But before receiving the blow of the cursed sword, Rose stopped the attack with her own hands to begin to shovel with arrow blows. Since what could he know about the lives of all his students, or the value of each of their lives? So Rose, after beating the demon, he threw him into a tree to stab him with his own sword and promised to end his life. But little by little, Ars's energy seemed to be running out, and not having another eye really affected him, not to mention that Nero still had a very strong member. Young man from his squad, who did not want to leave without him, but Nero asked Emilia to start running since she must save herself in turn. Rose did not understand what was happening since, like her, Nero lost many soldiers, and now the weakest of everyone is trying to save. So when Rose asked them to stop and saw the face of a scared young friend, she couldn't help but see the face of her own students, since at the end of the day, both squad members just wanted their teacher to live a long time. Day more, and although Rose soon returned to all, she knew that a wound as big as that could not be cured with healing magic, much less with a rose without a hint of mana. So Old took advantage of her last minutes alive to thank her, having let her fight at his side. But Rose did not like those last words, although he still assured her that they would be the same as those of his entire fallen squad, since she was his greatest admiration. And after his last breath, we only see Rose's squad destroyed by the combat and her teacher with a great pain in her heart. Likewise, a little later, Rose had to give the report to the king, so she told him that the Demon King planned to be revived. In addition, the attempted invasion of her kingdom would be very soon, and the man she fought with, called Onero, ended up escaping at the end of the fight, and they should take care of him in the future. And although Rose's report was over, she still wanted to ask the king for something, since she didn't want to be a knight never again. And although the king asked her if it was what she really wanted for her future, Rose assured that she no longer deserved to be a knight ever again and decided to retire towards her home. But in the middle of the road, two people wanted to know. If anything, she was Captain Rose, and when she claimed to be, it turns out that these gentlemen began to tell them that her good for nothing son named Jose was under her care. But Rose, remembering the last time she had seen him alone, could not regret that her son. He had passed away, but before finishing the sentence, the woman gave him some money, since they felt that they owed Rose. After all, they were afraid that their son would become a criminal. But when he joined their squad, they began to see him improve in her life, much happier, so Rose could not tell them the truth. At that moment, and upon arriving home at dusk, she tried to remain calm as much as she could. But when she noticed that that house was so quiet, sadness was inevitable for Rose, who would not stop feeling enormous guilt because of all the young people he sent to death. Time passed, and a month arrived in the blink of an eye, where the king had apparently gone on his own to Rose's home, and Cly was talking to her, since he wanted to know what they had talked about that day. But Rose knew the real reason why he and His Majesty had taken the time to visit her, since there was a possibility that she would join the side of the demons. But this did not suit Rose. It caught her attention as much as hanging herself somewhere. After all, if her entire group fell, what would be wrong if she did too? But Siegel didn't like this, since it wasn't a good way of thinking. Anyway, he let her go and changed the subject, noticing that her left eye had not yet healed, much less with her healing. And although Rose assured that the sword cuts magic, but for a short time and then she left, Sea Guys could not understand why it had not been healed. Her eye, to which Rose could not give her any answer. But deep down, Rose had not done it because such a wound is the proof of the sin that she committed with her own squad. Besides that, every time she sees her face, she would remember her students. And although Rose, not being a knight, no longer had any purpose in life, thinking about it, she continues to live thanks to all. Then she began to think about revenge, since she could go against that demon called Nero, who killed all her loved ones, to be exactly the same with him, and with many more demons. But Rose knew that she was not like that, and she needed to refresh her head a little. So when she sat for a while trying to calm down, she began to hear the laughter of Josh All and his entire squad while seeing a picture of them, which made her very sad, since she never believed she was so fragile, weak, and pathetic. She also wondered what her students would think if they could see her now. A vision of All began to answer that question, assuring that she would laugh a lot if she saw her teacher there, that he would tell her that that is not her for that reason. All tried to calm her captain by assuring her that nothing ever lasts forever, and although they are no longer here, that is fine. So Rose will have to accept it too. And to make her feel a little better, she assured that nothing will ever change, that she was their captain, and everyone was very happy with her remembering this. Rose heard she is still the person we admire, as Owl's last words, to which the rest of her group assured that her vice captain was absolutely right, and how happy they were with her. This gave some peace of mind to Rose, since she knew that the last month she only focused on the death of her students, but never on the tons of good times she had with them, and in doing so, she promised herself not to return. be so weak anymore, and between tears, he assured that he would become someone they could truly admire. He also proposed that he would save all the soldiers he could from the approaching war, so that no one would feel such pain again. But first, he would need at least 5 members and at least 2 healers to carry out her plan. Ideally, someone else like her, who not only heals but can run around the battlefield and protect herself, with the idea of finding someone who can fight at her side and not die. Ryu came out to the light to face his future, which in the present we see has become a reality, and Rose thanked Usato for having been able to find him. And although Usato seems scared since his teacher never usually praises him, Rose told him that he was very important. After all, not any senator could be like him just by training a little, in addition to asking Usato to imagine that everyone was a healer like her. But Usato stated that that would be the end of the world, and after receiving a couple of hits, she stated that he meant that it would be very difficult to reach such a level. So at the end of her training with Usato, Rose was finally able to say with all the confidence in the world that he will surely not die by her side. Watch the next video, and I'll see you next time.